This is the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, and I've just installed the latest HyperOS update. But will it fix some of the software issues that I encountered in my first review of the device? For example, the rather weird exposure selfie camera glitch. And this is its more affordable, more compact little sister, the Xiaomi 14. They both come with a powerful set of cameras. How they compare with iPhones and Samsungs is for another video. But in this video, I'm going to see how they compare to each other. Is the Ultra actually worth the extra money? There's actually been some talk of the Xiaomi 14 camera misting up in low temperatures. I haven't actually experienced this, but if you have, I might have a fix for it. Well, we'll do that later. Oh, and by the way, the Xiaomi 14 Pro wasn't actually released in Europe, so we just have the 14 and the 14 Ultra. The Xiaomi 14 has a 1200 x 2670 pixels 20:9 ratio screen with 460 pixels per inch density. On the other hand, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has a 1440 by 3200 pixels 20:9 ratio screen with a pixels per inch density of 522. The 14 is more boxy and it's got a flatter screen compared to the 14 Ultra, which has curved screen edges. My Xiaomi 14 is black with a matte back, while the 14 Ultra here is white with a faux leather back. The camera encasing is bigger on the 14 Ultra, and that's to make space for that extra telephoto camera. And it's also round rather than square, so when it comes to appearance, they do look quite different. And both devices are powered by the same Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chipset. Both devices have a full set of 50 megapixel rear cameras, as well as a 32 megapixel front camera. The big difference is that the 14 Ultra has an extra 120mm periscope telephoto. Now, the most important camera on any phone is the main camera, so let's talk about those. Both devices' main cameras are 23mm equivalent wides, and they both use OIS, or optical image stabilization. The Xiaomi 14 main camera has an f1.6 aperture, a 1/1.31 inch sensor with 1.2 micrometer size pixels. Meanwhile, the 14 Ultra has a f1.63 to f4.0 variable aperture. And it's also got a bigger 1-inch sensor, which uses bigger 1.6 micrometer pixels. Another difference between these two main cameras is that the Xiaomi 14 uses dual pixel phased autofocus, whereas the 14 Ultra uses multi-directional phased autofocus. Both devices have a feature called motion capture. When you activate motion capture, the camera identifies and then prioritizes focus on your chosen subject. And this mode is only available in the regular photo mode. But while the Ultra has a button in the interface, to enable this in the 14, you need to go into settings. Switch to Pro Photo mode, and both devices support ultra raw photos in all rear cameras. The difference is that while the Xiaomi 14 supports 14-bit color, the 14 Ultra can capture up to 16-bit color in the RAW format. One thing I noticed is that when you're in Pro Photo mode and you have RAW enabled, you cannot adjust exposure manually in the Xiaomi 14, but in the 14 Ultra you can. So that's a bit of a handicap. If you're in Pro mode, you want to be able to set exposure, you want to set ISO, you want to set shutter speed. In the Xiaomi 14 you can't, in the 14 Ultra you can, if you're shooting RAW that is. And as well, in Pro Photo mode, the Ultra supports presets and custom presets, while the 14 does not. Now in Pro mode for video, both devices are pretty similar. They can both shoot the log format in 10-bit color, and as well they can add preview LUTs. Both devices have a 75mm telephoto, which appears in the camera app as the 3.2 times button, but the 14 Ultra 75mm does have a slightly bigger f1.8 aperture compared to the Xiaomi 14's f2.0. So of course the bigger aperture should be better for capturing light as well as creating a shallower depth of field. And of course, as we already mentioned, the 14 Ultra has an extra 120mm periscope telephoto, which the 14 does not have. So this means that the 14 Ultra has double the digital zoom at 120 times magnification in photo mode, compared to 60 times for the 14. However, in video mode, they're both actually limited to 15 times for some reason. But you can see the difference at that 15 times zoom between the two devices. The 14 Ultra 15 times video is definitely less pixelated than you get from the regular 14, which is as you would expect using that 120mm telephoto. While both devices have 50 megapixel ultra-wide cameras, the ultra-wide in the 14 and the 14 Ultra are slightly different. The Xiaomi 14 has a 14mm equivalent with a f2.2 aperture and a 115-degree field of view. On the other hand, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has a 12mm equivalent with a f1.8 aperture, giving a wider 122-degree field of view. So the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has a bit of a wider field of view here, and as well it's a bigger aperture, so it's going to be a little bit better in low light situations. Both devices have, as far as I can tell, identical selfie cameras. And when I last tested the 14 Ultra, I found that the auto exposure didn't really work as well as it should. So when I tap my face, it should actually expose for my face. Instead, it seems to expose for the background, and it doesn't matter where I tap on the screen. But has the system update fixed this problem? In short, no, it's still doing the same thing. Now both selfie cameras are good quality, and now we can finally shoot at 4K up to 60 frames per second, bringing the Xiaomi's up to speed with devices from rivals such as Apple and Samsung. But I did find that in video mode they both have pretty poor dynamic range when you have the light behind you. You can see that the background gets blown out. Bad tone mapping maybe? To me it looks like they're not using tone mapping at all. But when it's backlit, the 14 just like completely blown out now. Whereas the Ultra, I think it's a little bit blown out, but it's not as bad as this. Yeah, so this is the Ultra, and it's you can see it's much better in terms of this blowing out when you've got this backlight in video mode. It's much better, but when it's the other way around, when it's front lit, it seems a bit dark. So I'm guessing that the Ultra is underexposing a little bit. In terms of video, both devices are pretty similar. However, the Ultra supports 4K at 120 frames per second recording, while the 14 does not. As well, the Ultra allows camera switching during recording, while the 14 doesn't. Now, when we're using the main sensor, you would expect the 14 Ultra to beat the 14 because it's got this 1-inch sensor. But personally, I didn't actually see that much difference. Perhaps the regular 14 is even a little bit less glitchy when you're shooting video. But then again, maybe the 14 Ultra is a little bit, just maybe a little tiny bit sharper. There's nothing glaringly different between the two, I would say. Now, both devices have an AI camera feature in the settings for photos, and this feature is supposed to enhance images depending on the scene. But being honest with you, I really struggled to see any difference between the images. I tried it a number of times, switching it on and off and taking a picture of exactly the same image and then comparing the two, and I really couldn't see any difference between them. If there is a difference, it's quite a subtle difference, I'd say. Now, the 14 Ultra comes with an extra AI feature for photos, which the 14 does not have. So when we're zoomed in over 30 times, usually you get this AI icon. It's like a red AI icon, and it appears in the bottom corner And this means it's going to start using generative AI to create a clearer image. And I do actually find that this does make a difference, because when you're zoomed in so far, obviously normally we get these very pixelated images. It does do quite a good job at removing that pixelated look and making it look a little bit nicer to look at. But I wouldn't say that it makes beautiful pictures or anything. And of course you have to bear in mind that it's inventing detail to a certain extent, and you might not actually like the idea of using it. Another advantage the Ultra has over the 14 is the option of the photographer's kit. And this gives you a grip with a power bank for extra battery, as well as customizable buttons and a dial. And of course it allows you to mount ND filters and other kinds of filters using the filter adapter. So I talked about this more in my first review of the Ultra, but it's definitely an advantage which might persuade you to pick the Ultra over the basic 14. So I don't actually have this issue, so I don't know if this works, but some people have complained that in cold conditions, the Xiaomi 14 cameras get a little bit misty. My guess is that some kind of moisture is trapped inside the device, but really I'm just guessing here. The thing is that modern smartphones are water resistant, so if there is a little bit of water inside, it can't actually get out. So here's a suggested fix that someone wrote in the comments of the Xiaomi 14 review. All you need to do is remove the SIM card and then just leave it open so that the moisture can escape. And then just leave it overnight in a warm, dry location, and you just need to allow that moisture to dry off. So like I say, no idea if that works because I haven't had this problem, but if you do try it and it does work, please let us know in the comments. I don't know, it might even take longer than one night. So you might have to maybe leave it for a few days or over a few nights. If you could just take out the SIM card, leave it open, because if there is a little bit of moisture in there, it can't get out because the whole thing is sealed. So I wouldn't really say that there's a massive difference between the two, the Xiaomi 14 and the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. So really, I think the main reason for spending that extra is if you want the biggest screen, you got the extra telephoto, and all the other little sort of features. There's the photographer's kit and a few other little extras there that you can do with the Ultra that you can't do with the 14. I've been creating with smartphones for years now, and I've been putting a lot of this knowledge into my Patreon page because I want to give it back to all the people that are supporting me there on Patreon, because I'm really grateful. And I just want to say big thank you to you guys, a big shout out. Yes, you guys rock, because without you I would probably struggle to keep this channel going, to be honest. So a big thanks to you, and I hope that I'm repaying what you've done for me and this channel with some good lessons there. And I'm always there anyway, giving people feedback. So join us there, tons to look at, and otherwise see you next time.